The starship Endeavour glided through the velvet cosmos, approaching the vibrant planet of Araria with its lush greenery vivid against the backdrop of space. Captain John Carter, a seasoned explorer and diplomat from Earth, prepared his crew for what was to be a historic mission. The Alarians, a species known for their advanced society and elusive nature, had finally agreed to host human visitors after decades of distant, cautious communication. John's heart raced with anticipation as the ship descended through the swirling mists of Alaria's upper atmosphere. As the Endeavour landed on a designated platform outside the capital city of Luminara, the crew readied themselves to disembark. John adjusted his uniform meticulously. Every detail had to reflect his respect and earnestness in fostering relations between Earth and Araria. The Alarian greeting party awaited them at the foot of the landing ramp. They were a sight to behold, tall with iridescent skin that shimmered under Alaria's twin suns. Their leader, a regal figure named Muriel, stepped forward with a serene grace, her eyes wide with what seemed like a mixture of curiosity and amazement. "Welcome, Captain Carter, and esteemed crew of the Endeavour," she said, her voice echoing softly. "Your arrival has been most eagerly anticipated." John stepped forward, extending a hand in the traditional Earth gesture of greeting. "Thank you, High Counselor Muriel. We are honored to be here and hope our visit marks the beginning of a long and fruitful friendship between our peoples," he replied, his voice steady despite the fluttering in his chest. Muriel's hand met his, her touch cool and light. Around them, John noticed the gathering crowd of Alarians, their expressions ranging from intrigue to outright awe. It was clear that the sight of a human was as novel to them as their ethereal beauty was to him and his crew. Muriel invited John and his senior officers to a welcoming ceremony to be held in their honor. As they walked through the streets of Luminara, John couldn't help but notice the city's breathtaking architecture, with structures that flowed seamlessly into the natural landscape, almost as if they had grown organically from the ground. The ceremony was held in the Great Hall, a magnificent structure at the heart of the city. It was filled with luminaries from various sectors of Alarian society, all eager to witness the historic event. John delivered a speech, carefully crafted to convey both respect and the desire for mutual understanding. As the formalities concluded, the atmosphere relaxed, and the Alarians approached to mingle with the human guests. John was struck by their gentle demeanor and the grace with which they moved. Muriel stayed close to him, her fascination with his human features apparent. "Captain, your presence here is more than an honor. It is a curiosity and a wonder," she confided. "We have never seen one such as yourself, and your unique appearance has captivated many." John was taken aback by her directness, but charmed by her sincerity. As they conversed, he learned more about Alarian culture, their values, and their advanced understanding of science and art. The evening progressed with performances of traditional Alarian music and dance, creating a spectacle of sound and color that enthralled the human guests. The night set the stage for what John hoped would be a successful mission, not only in diplomatic terms but also in cultural exchange. As he retired to the quarters provided for him and his crew, John felt a mix of exhilaration and the weight of responsibility. Little did he know his mission on Araria would soon take unexpected turns, guided by the enigmatic and increasingly enchanting Muriel. The morning after the welcoming ceremony, John Carter received an invitation to attend the Gala of Stars, a prestigious event held in Luminara to honor significant occasions. This year the gala was dedicated to celebrating humanity's first contact with Araria. As John prepared for the evening, he couldn't shake the feeling that this event would be pivotal, not just for diplomacy but for his own experience on this alien world. As dusk settled over Luminara, the city came alive with a soft, bioluminescent glow. The streets were lined with luminous flora that cast a gentle light, guiding John and his crew to the grand hall where the gala was to be held. The hall itself was a marvel. Its ceiling was a transparent dome, offering an unobstructed view of the night sky, where stars twinkled against the backdrop of Alaria's twin moons. Upon entering, John was immediately struck by the sheer opulence of the event. The room was filled with Alarians, all dressed in flowing garments that shimmered with the same iridescence as their skin. The air was filled with music that seemed to resonate with the very structure of the hall, creating a harmonious and otherworldly atmosphere. As John made his way through the crowd, he noticed the stares, Ilarians of all ages gazing at him with unabashed awe. He overheard whispers, words in the melodic Alarian language that he didn't fully understand, but their tones conveyed admiration and curiosity. Muriel approached him, her presence immediately drawing the attention of everyone around. She wore a gown that seemed to ripple like water, its colors shifting with every movement. "Captain Carter," she greeted, her voice carrying a note of warmth that wasn't there before. "You are the centerpiece of tonight's celebration. It's rare for us to honor an outsider in such a way, but you've captured our collective imagination." John smiled, feeling slightly out of his depth, but deeply honored. "The honor is mine, High Counselor. Your world is beyond anything I could have imagined, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here." As they conversed, John noticed that more and more Alarians were gathering around them, their expressions ranging from awe to something more intense. A group of young Alarian women, particularly striking with their long, flowing hair and luminous eyes, were openly admiring him, their gazes lingering on his face and form. One of them, a bold and confident figure, stepped forward and spoke directly to Muriel. "High Counselor, I have never seen anyone like him before," the young woman said, her voice carrying a hint of playful challenge. "Is it true that all humans are as striking as Captain Carter?" Muriel laughed softly, clearly amused by the question. "I cannot speak for all humans, but Captain Carter certainly stands out among them." John felt a flush of warmth, unaccustomed to such open admiration. He was a seasoned diplomat and had received praise before, but the intensity of the attention from these beautiful alien women was something entirely new. The conversation around him became a chorus of compliments and curious questions about Earth, human culture, and to his surprise, about his personal life. As the evening wore on, John found himself increasingly surrounded by admirers, the attention flattering, but also overwhelming. The Alarians, particularly the women, seemed utterly fascinated by his human features, the texture of his skin, the color of his eyes, even the way he moved and spoke. They complimented him on everything from his height to the timbre of his voice, their fascination genuine and intense. Muriel, who remained by his side, seemed both amused and slightly protective. "You must forgive them, Captain. You are the first human we have ever encountered, and your appearance is different from what we are accustomed to. In a very pleasing way, it seems." John chuckled, trying to maintain his composure. "I must admit I've never experienced anything quite like this before. I'm not used to being the center of attention in this way." Muriel's expression softened as she looked at him. "You are more than just a curiosity to us, John. You represent something new, something we have longed for, a connection to a world beyond our own, to a species that shares our curiosity and desire for understanding." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden shift in the music, a lively rhythmic tune that signaled the beginning of a traditional Alarian dance. The crowd parted, and a space was cleared in the center of the hall. To John's surprise, several of the Alarian women who had been admiring him earlier stepped forward, their eyes fixed on him with clear intent. One of them, the bold young woman who had spoken to Muriel earlier, extended her hand to John. "Captain Carter," she said with a smile that was both inviting and mischievous, "would you honor us by joining in our dance?" John hesitated for only a moment before accepting her hand. The crowd watched with eager anticipation as he was led to the center of the floor. Muriel looked on with an expression that was a mix of pride and something else, something deeper that John couldn't quite place. The dance began, and John quickly realized that it was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The movements were fluid and graceful, the steps intricate but rhythmic. His partner moved with an effortless elegance, guiding him through the dance with a light touch and a smile that seemed to light up the room. As they danced, more Alarians joined in, creating a whirl of color and motion around them. John found himself swept up in the moment, the energy of the dance infectious and exhilarating. The admiration and warmth of the Alarians, especially the women, became almost tangible, and for the first time, John felt truly connected to this alien world. When the dance finally ended, the crowd erupted into applause, their admiration for John now unmistakable. He was breathless but exhilarated, the experience unlike anything he had ever known. As he returned to Muriel's side, she greeted him with a look of deep approval. "You handled that beautifully, Captain," she said softly. "You have made quite an impression on my people tonight." John smiled, still catching his breath. "I think your people have made quite an impression on me as well." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversation, laughter, and growing connection. John realized that his mission on Araria was no longer just about diplomacy. It was becoming something far more personal. And as he walked through the luminescent streets of Luminara that night, he couldn't help but wonder what the future would hold for him in this strange, beautiful world. The days following the Gala of Stars were filled with continued exploration of Alarian culture and deepening connections between John and the Alarians. The fascination with him showed no signs of waning, especially among the female population. However, beneath the surface of admiration, John began to sense a growing tension, particularly from some of the Alarian males who were less than thrilled with the attention he was receiving. One afternoon, as John was touring the breathtaking Crystal Gardens, a place where the plants themselves seemed to sing with the wind, he was approached by a group of young Alarian men. Their leader, a striking figure named Arian, was known for his prowess in the Tarian trials, an ancient series of competitions that tested a warrior's strength, wit, and honor. Arian had been among those who had shown subtle disdain for the humans' popularity, and now it seemed he had decided to confront the issue directly. "Captain Carter?" Arian called out, his tone polite but carrying an undercurrent of challenge. "I have heard much about your abilities, and I wonder if you would honor us by participating in the Tarian trials. It is a tradition that all who are considered worthy by our people must face." John turned to face Arian, recognizing the challenge for what it was. He had been in diplomatic situations before where he had to prove himself in some form of competition, but this felt different. The intensity in Arian's gaze suggested that this was about more than just honor. It was about pride and perhaps even jealousy. Muriel, who had been walking with John, immediately sensed the tension. She stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Arian, Captain Carter is our guest. The Tarian trials are not a requirement for him." But John, ever the diplomat and never one to back down from a challenge, saw this as an opportunity to further integrate himself into Alarian culture and possibly diffuse the underlying tension. He held up a hand to Muriel, signaling that he was willing to accept the challenge. "I appreciate the concern, High Counselor, but I think this could be an excellent way to understand more about your culture, Arian," John said, meeting the Alarian warrior's gaze with his own steady determination. "I accept your invitation to the Tarian trials." Arian smiled, a mix of respect and competitive eagerness lighting up his eyes. "Very well, Captain. We shall see how a human fares in the trials of Araria." The announcement of John's participation in the Tarian trials spread quickly through Luminara. The event, which traditionally drew large crowds, now promised even more excitement with the inclusion of the first human competitor. The trials, usually a local affair, became the talk of the city, with many eager to see how the Earthling would perform against seasoned Alarian warriors. The trials were held in the Sky Arena, a massive floating structure suspended high above the city, supported by unseen forces that kept it aloft. The arena itself was a marvel of Alarian engineering, with platforms that could shift and change during the competitions, adding an extra layer of challenge to the events. On the day of the trials, the arena was filled to capacity, with spectators eager to witness the spectacle. John stood in the center of the arena, surrounded by his competitors, all formidable warriors who had trained for years for events like these. Arian, the leader of the group, stood directly across from him, his expression one of focused determination. The first trial was a test of agility, called the Dance of Blades. Competitors had to navigate a series of moving platforms while avoiding or deflecting sharp spinning discs that were released from the arena's walls. The trial required not only speed but also precise timing and reflexes, as a single misstep could mean injury or disqualification. John's heart raced as the trial began. The platforms shifted beneath his feet, and the discs flew toward him with alarming speed. He quickly realized that brute strength would not win this trial. He had to rely on his instincts and the combat training he had received back on Earth. To the amazement of the crowd, John moved with a grace that belied his size. His military training had honed his reflexes, and he deftly dodged and deflected the spinning blades, using the platforms to his advantage. He wasn't as fast as the Alarians, who seemed to glide effortlessly through the course, but his determination and adaptability kept him in the competition. Arian, who was the first to finish, looked back in surprise as John completed the course not far behind him. The crowd, initially unsure of what to expect from the human, erupted in cheers, impressed by his performance. The second trial was the test of the mind. a complex puzzle that required competitors to manipulate holographic constructs to create a specific pattern. The puzzle was designed to test not only intelligence, but also the ability to think under pressure, as the constructs constantly shifted and changed. John approached the puzzle with a focused mind, drawing on his experience in strategy and problem-solving. The trial was intense, with the constructs shifting rapidly, but John managed to keep up, his analytical mind working through the possibilities. By the time he completed the puzzle, he was among the top finishers, much to the surprise and approval of the onlookers. As the day drew to a close, John had proven himself capable of competing with the best of the Alarians. Though Arian still led the trials, the respect between the two men had grown. Arian, who had initially seen John as an outsider unworthy of the trials, now viewed him as a true competitor. The final trial was set for the next day, and it would be the most challenging yet, a duel that would test both physical and mental strength. As John left the arena that evening, the cheers of the crowd still ringing in his ears, he knew that the next trial would determine not only his standing in the competition, but also his place among the Alarians. And as he prepared for what lay ahead, he couldn't help but think of Muriel, her guidance, her presence, and the unspoken connection that had been growing between them. The trials had become more than just a test of his abilities. They were a journey that was drawing him deeper into the heart of Araria and closer to the enigmatic woman who had become his most trusted ally. The day of the final trial arrived with a palpable tension in the air. The sky arena was filled to capacity, the excitement of the spectators electric as they awaited the culmination of the Tarian trials. John stood in the preparation chamber, his thoughts focused on the challenge ahead. The duel would test everything he had learned during his time on Araria, his strength, his strategy, and his ability to adapt in the heat of combat. Muriel had visited him early that morning, offering words of encouragement and reminding him that the duel was as much about honor as it was about victory. "Remember, John," she had said, her voice calm and steady. "This trial is not just a test of physical prowess, it's a test of character. Fight with honor, and no matter the outcome, you will have earned the respect of my people." As John stepped into the arena, he was greeted by the cheers of the crowd, their energy filling him with a renewed sense of determination. Across from him stood Arian, his chief competitor, and the current leader of the trials. Arian's expression was serious, but there was a new respect in his eyes as he regarded the human who had proven himself in the previous trials. The duel would take place on a series of floating platforms, each one shifting and moving unpredictably, adding an element of danger to the fight. The goal was not to kill or seriously injure, but to disarm and incapacitate the opponent, proving superior skill and tactics. As the signal to begin was given, John and Arian circled each other, both waiting for the right moment to strike. Arian was the first to move, his speed and agility allowing him to close the distance between them in an instant. John parried the initial blow, feeling the force of Arian's attack reverberate through his arm. It was clear that Arian was a formidable opponent, but John had faced worse in his years of service. The duel quickly escalated into a flurry of movement and strikes, each combatant testing the other's defenses. Arian's style was fluid and elegant, each strike precise and controlled. John, in contrast, relied on a combination of strength and adaptability, using his military training to anticipate Arian's moves and counter with his own. At one point, Arian managed to land a solid hit on John's side, knocking him off balance and sending him skidding across a platform. The crowd gasped as John struggled to regain his footing, but instead of pressing his advantage, Arian paused, giving John the opportunity to stand. John nodded in acknowledgement, appreciating the gesture of respect. He quickly resumed his stance, his mind racing as he analyzed Arian's techniques. He realized that while Arian was faster, he had a predictable pattern in his attacks, one that John could exploit if he timed it right. The duel continued, the platforms shifting beneath them as they moved from one to the next. As Arian launched another rapid series of strikes, John feigned a moment of weakness, allowing Arian to think he had the upper hand. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, John sidestepped Arian's final blow and countered with a powerful strike to Arian's weapon hand. The maneuver worked perfectly. Arian's weapon was knocked from his grasp, clattering to the platform below. Before Arian could react, John followed up with a sweeping kick, sending Arian to the ground. The crowd erupted in a mixture of cheers and gasps, the duel's outcome now hanging in the balance. John stood over Arian, his weapon poised for the final blow. But instead of delivering it, he extended a hand to his fallen opponent, echoing the respect that Arian had shown him earlier. Arian looked up at John, surprise flickering across his face before he grasped John's hand and allowed himself to be pulled to his feet. The arena was silent for a moment, and then the crowd erupted into applause, their approval of both warriors' conduct evident. The duel had ended, and while John had won, the victory was shared in the spirit of mutual respect and honor. The conclusion of the duel marked the end of the Tarian trials, and with it, a significant turning point in John's journey on Araria. The respect he had earned from Arian and the Alarian people was palpable as he stood with Muriel during the closing ceremony. The High Counselor addressed the crowd, her voice filled with pride and reverence. "Today we have witnessed a display of true valor and honor," Muriel proclaimed, her gaze sweeping across the assembled Alarians. "Captain John Carter has proven himself not only as a warrior, but as a person of great integrity. He has shown us that strength is not just in physical might, but in character and respect for one's opponent." Arian stepped forward, the crowd falling silent as he approached John. With a solemn expression, he removed the ceremonial sash that marked him as the leader of the trials and placed it over John's shoulders. "You have earned this, Captain Carter," Arian said, his voice carrying no trace of resentment, only admiration. "You are now one of us." The crowd erupted into cheers, their acceptance of John now complete. The trial that had begun as a test of strength had ended in a bond of unity and mutual respect, cementing John's place among the Alarians. That evening, a grand feast was held in the Crystal Gardens to celebrate the trial's conclusion and John's victory. The mood was joyous, the Alarians and humans mingling freely as they shared stories, laughter, and the hope of a future strengthened by their newfound alliance. As the night wore on, John found himself walking through the gardens with Muriel. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers, and the bioluminescent plants cast a gentle glow over the path. They walked in comfortable silence for a time, the connection between them growing stronger with each passing moment. Finally, Muriel broke the silence, her voice soft and sincere. "John, you have done more than just win the trials. You have bridged a gap between our worlds, one that many thought could never be crossed. I am honored to know you and to have walked this path with you." John turned to her, his expression earnest. "I couldn't have done it without your guidance, Muriel. You've been more than a teacher or a guide. You've become a friend, and something more." Muriel's eyes met his, the depth of her feelings clear in their luminous depths. "And you have become more to me as well, John." In that moment, the unspoken bond between them crystallized into something real and undeniable. They had come from different worlds, different cultures, but the trials had brought them together in a way that transcended those differences. As the evening drew to a close, John and Muriel stood together looking out over the shimmering landscape of Araria. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges yet to be faced, but for the first time they both knew that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The trials had ended, but their journey had only just begun. And as they walked back to the feast, side by side, they did so not just as allies, but as two souls who had found something extraordinary in each other amidst the stars. The days following the Tarian trials were a whirlwind of activity and change. John Carter's victory had not only earned him respect, but it also solidified his place within Alarian society. The humans and Alarians worked side by side, sharing knowledge and forging new alliances. For John, this time was marked by a deepening connection with Muriel, the enigmatic High Counselor who had guided him through the trials and into the heart of Araria. Their relationship, once defined by diplomacy and mutual respect, had grown into something far more personal. They spent long hours together, exploring the city of Luminara, discussing the future of human-Alarian relations, and sharing stories of their worlds. Muriel's fascination with Earth and its cultures was matched by John's awe of Alaria's beauty and complexity. One afternoon they ventured to the Solarian Cliffs, a place known for its breathtaking views of the planet's twin suns setting over the Crystal Sea. The cliffs were a sacred place for the Alarians, a site where they often came to meditate and reflect on life's greater mysteries. Muriel had chosen this location with purpose, knowing that the serenity of the environment would offer a perfect backdrop for a conversation she had been contemplating for days. As they stood at the edge of the cliffs, the warm breeze carrying the scent of the sea, Muriel turned to John, her expression thoughtful. "John, I've been thinking a great deal about what you've brought to our world, not just in terms of knowledge or alliances, but the way you've touched the hearts of my people. And mine. John looked at her, his own feelings reflected in her eyes. I've been thinking about that too, Muriel. I came here as a diplomat, but I found so much more. I've found someone I care about deeply. The words hung in the air between them, the gravity of the moment unmistakable. Muriel reached out, taking John's hand in hers, the simple gesture conveying more than words ever could. Araria has always been a world of harmony and balance, Muriel said softly. But your presence has introduced something new, something that challenges our traditions but also enriches them. I feel that same challenge within myself, John. You've awakened something in me that I never expected to find. John squeezed her hand, his heart swelling with emotion. I feel the same way, Muriel. I never imagined that I would find someone like you, someone who makes me feel so connected, so alive. They stood there for a long moment, the world around them fading as they focused solely on each other. Finally, Muriel spoke, her voice filled with quiet determination. There is a path forward for us, John, but it won't be easy. Our worlds are different, and there will be those who do not understand or accept what we have found together. John nodded, understanding the challenges they would face. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. I'm not going anywhere, Muriel. I'm here with you. With that, they shared their first kiss, a tender and heartfelt expression of the bond that had grown between them. The setting suns bathed them in golden light, the moment marking the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, one defined by love, unity, and the promise of a shared future. The joy of their newfound relationship was tempered by the realities of their respective responsibilities. John and Muriel's bond, while strong, began to draw attention from both humans and Alarians, who were less than enthusiastic about the implications of such a union. Whispers of discontent started to spread, particularly among the more conservative factions of Alarian society. One evening, as John and Muriel attended a council meeting in Luminara, the undercurrents of tension became impossible to ignore. The meeting, intended to discuss the integration of human technology into Alarian systems, quickly devolved into a debate about the growing closeness between the two species, and more pointedly the relationship between John and Muriel. Arian, who had once been John's fiercest competitor, now stood as his staunchest ally. However, even his support was not enough to quell the rising voices of concern. One of the elder council members, a respected figure named Valera, voiced what many had been thinking, but few had dared to say. High Counselor Muriel, Valera began, her tone respectful but firm. We have welcomed the humans into our world, and we have learned much from them. But I fear that this relationship between you and Captain Carter may be moving us too quickly down a path we are not prepared to travel. The room fell silent as Valera's words hung in the air. John felt the weight of the scrutiny, but he remained composed, determined to face the challenge head-on. Muriel, however, was the first to respond. Valera, I understand your concerns, but I believe that the bond we share is a reflection of the potential for unity between our worlds. Yes, it is unconventional, but it is also a sign of the progress we have made, progress that can lead to a stronger, more harmonious future. Valera sighed, her expression softening. I do not doubt the sincerity of your feelings, Muriel, nor do I question Captain Carter's intentions, but we must be mindful of the impact this will have on our people. Change is not something to be taken lightly, especially when it challenges the very foundation of our traditions. The debate continued, with voices from both sides weighing in. Some supported Muriel and John, arguing that their relationship was a natural evolution of the alliance between their worlds. Others, however, expressed fears that such a union could destabilize the delicate balance that Alarian society had maintained for centuries. As the meeting adjourned, John and Muriel found themselves alone in the council chamber, the weight of the discussion pressing heavily on their shoulders. We knew this wouldn't be easy, John said, breaking the silence. But I didn't expect the resistance to be so strong so soon. Muriel nodded, her expression troubled. Our people are cautious, John. They fear what they do not understand, and your presence, our relationship, challenges their perception of the world. But I believe that with time, they will come to see what we see, that this bond between us is not a threat, but an opportunity for growth. John took her hand, drawing strength from her resolve. Then we'll face it together, like we always have. We'll show them that our love is something to be celebrated, not feared." Muriel smiled, her confidence returning. "Yes, we will. And we will prove that this is the beginning of something greater than either of us could have imagined." With that, they left the chamber, determined to navigate the challenges ahead. They knew that the road would be difficult, but they were ready to fight for their love and the future they believed in, one where humans and Alarians could coexist in harmony, united by the bonds that transcended the stars. The days following the council meeting were fraught with tension. Although John and Muriel were determined to stand by their relationship, the resistance they faced from some factions of Alarian society grew stronger. What had started as whispers of discontent had escalated into public debate, with some influential voices questioning the wisdom of such a close alliance between humans and Alarians, particularly one so symbolized by a personal relationship. John continued his work, focusing on the integration of human technology with Alarian systems, but he couldn't ignore the undercurrents of unrest. He noticed that some Alarians who had once been warm and welcoming now regarded him with suspicion, their gazes questioning the impact of his presence on their world. Muriel, too, felt the strain. As High Counselor, she had always enjoyed the respect and trust of her people, but now she found herself defending her choices against those who saw her relationship with John as a threat to their traditions. Despite this, her resolve remained unshaken. She believed in the importance of their bond, not just personally, but as a symbol of the potential for unity and understanding between their worlds. The situation reached a breaking point when a group of conservative Alarians, led by a charismatic elder named Ralith, called for a formal review of the alliance with humanity. They claimed that the rapid integration of human culture and technology was destabilizing Alarian society, and that the relationship between Muriel and John was a dangerous precedent that could lead to unforeseen consequences. Ralith's rhetoric was powerful, appealing to the fears of those who were already uncertain about the changes taking place. He argued that Araria had thrived for millennia by maintaining its unique way of life, and that too much change, too quickly, could destroy the harmony they had worked so hard to preserve. A public assembly was called to address these concerns, with both sides given the opportunity to present their views. The atmosphere was charged with emotion as Alarians from all walks of life gathered in the Grand Hall, eager to hear the arguments and make their voices heard. The Grand Hall was filled to capacity, the normally serene chamber buzzing with the tension of the impending debate. John stood with Muriel at the front of the hall, their presence a powerful reminder of the stakes involved. The assembly was not just about their relationship, but about the future of human-Alarian relations as a whole. Ralith was the first to speak, his voice calm but firm as he addressed the assembly. "Fellow Alarians, we stand at a crossroads. Our world has thrived for generations, guided by the wisdom of our ancestors and the balance we have maintained with the natural order. But now, we face a challenge unlike any we have known before, the influence of an alien culture that, while intriguing, threatens to upend the harmony we hold dear." He gestured towards John and Muriel. "The relationship between our High Counselor and Captain Carter is symbolic of this challenge. It is not that we question their intentions, but we must ask ourselves, are we ready to embrace such a profound change? Are we prepared to alter the very fabric of our society in ways we cannot yet fully understand?" Ralith's words were met with a mix of applause and murmurs of agreement from his supporters. His arguments resonated with those who feared that the changes brought by the human presence could lead to the erosion of Alarian culture and traditions. When Ralith finished, the room fell silent, all eyes turning to Muriel. She stepped forward, her expression calm and composed, though John could see the fire in her eyes. "Ralith speaks of tradition and balance, and I agree that these are values we must cherish," Muriel began, her voice steady and clear. "But I also believe that growth and change are essential to our continued survival and prosperity. The presence of Captain Carter and the humans does not diminish our culture. Rather, it offers us the opportunity to expand our understanding, to learn and grow in ways we could never have imagined." She looked out at the assembly, her gaze sweeping over the gathered Alarians. "Our ancestors valued harmony, but they also valued wisdom and the pursuit of knowledge. They did not shy away from the unknown. They embraced it, knowing that it was through exploration and curiosity that we would evolve." Muriel then turned her gaze to John, a soft smile playing on her lips. My relationship with Captain Carter is not a threat to our traditions. It is a testament to the strength of our culture, that we can welcome the new while honoring the old. We stand on the brink of a new era, one where our people can forge alliances and friendships across the stars. This is not something to be feared, but something to be celebrated. John stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. I came to Araria as a diplomat, with the hope of building bridges between our worlds. What I found was a people who are strong, wise, and deeply connected to their planet. I have learned so much from you, and I hope that in turn, you have learned from us. Muriel and I represent what is possible when two cultures come together with respect and love. The room was silent for a moment as the assembly absorbed their words. Then slowly applause began to spread through the hall, growing louder and more fervent as more Ilarians joined in. The support was not unanimous. There were still those who looked uncertain, even fearful, but the tide had clearly turned. Ralith, recognizing the shift in the room, stepped forward once more. "It is clear that the will of the people supports this new path," he said, his tone grudging but respectful. "But I caution that we proceed with care. The future is unwritten, and we must ensure that our traditions are not lost in the pursuit of progress." With those final words, the assembly was adjourned. The atmosphere was one of cautious optimism, a sense that while the road ahead would not be easy, it was one worth traveling. As the crowd dispersed, John and Muriel remained at the front of the hall, surrounded by supporters offering words of encouragement and congratulations. When they were finally alone, John turned to Muriel, his heart swelling with pride and affection. "We did it," he said softly, taking her hand in his. Muriel nodded, her eyes shining with emotion. "Yes, we did. But this is just the beginning. There will be more challenges ahead, but I believe we can face them together." John smiled, pulling her into a warm embrace. "Together," he agreed. In that moment, they both knew that while their journey was far from over, they had taken a significant step towards a future where their love and the alliance between their worlds could thrive. In the wake of the assembly, John and Muriel found themselves navigating the complexities of their relationship with a renewed sense of purpose. The debate had shifted public opinion, but it had also highlighted the challenges they would face moving forward. They had won a significant victory, but they knew the road ahead was still fraught with obstacles, both personal and political. Despite the lingering tension, the bond between John and Muriel grew stronger. They spent more time together, not just as allies but as partners, exploring the depths of their feelings for each other. Their connection became a symbol of the potential for unity between their worlds, a beacon of hope for those who believed in the power of love and understanding to bridge even the widest of gaps. However, not everyone was convinced. Ralith and his followers continued to voice their concerns, their rhetoric growing more aggressive as they saw their influence wane. The more they tried to undermine the alliance, the more determined John and Muriel became to prove that their relationship was not just a fleeting passion, but the foundation of something far greater. One evening, as they walked along the shores of the Crystal Sea, the tranquility of the moment was shattered by the sudden appearance of a group of Ralith's supporters. They approached with grim determination, their leader, a young, fervent Ilarian named Tarian, stepping forward to confront them. "Captain Carter," Tarian began, his tone respectful but cold. "You have brought many changes to our world, some of which have been difficult for us to accept. But the bond you share with our High Counselor, it is unnatural. It goes against everything we have held sacred for generations." John stood his ground, feeling Muriel's presence beside him, a steadying force in the face of hostility. "Tarian, I understand your concerns, but what Muriel and I have found together is not something to be feared. It is a new way forward, a path that can strengthen both our worlds." Tarian shook his head, frustration evident in his eyes. "You may believe that, but there are those among us who see your influence as a threat. You are forcing us to change too quickly, to abandon our traditions for something we do not fully understand." Muriel stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Tarian, change is inevitable. It is how we grow, how we evolve. Our traditions will always be a part of us, but we must also embrace the future. John and I are not asking you to abandon who you are, but to open your hearts and minds to what could be." Tarian hesitated, clearly conflicted. The tension between the two sides was palpable, and for a moment, It seemed as though the situation might escalate. But then, something shifted in Tarian's expression. A glimmer of doubt, perhaps, or a recognition of the truth in Muriel's words. "I do not agree with your path," Tarian finally said, his voice softer now. "But I see that you are committed to it. I only hope that you are right, and that this union between our worlds brings the harmony you seek." With that, Tarian and his followers turned and walked away, leaving John and Muriel alone once more. The encounter had been tense, but it had also shown that even those who opposed them were beginning to see that their love was not just a personal matter, but a catalyst for change. As they watched the sun set over the crystal sea, John turned to Muriel, his heart full of determination. "We've come so far, Muriel, but there's still so much work to be done." Muriel nodded, her gaze unwavering. "Yes, but we're not alone. There are many who stand with us, who believe in what we're trying to build. And as long as we have each other, we can face whatever comes next." John smiled, taking her hand in his. "Together," he said, echoing the word that had become their mantra. They stood there in silence for a while longer, the warmth of the setting sun on their faces, knowing that the turning point had come and gone. They were ready for the challenges ahead, confident in the strength of their bond and the promise of a united future. The days that followed marked a new chapter in the history of both Araria and humanity. The assembly had served as a catalyst for deeper integration between the two worlds, with new projects and collaborations springing up in every sector, from science and technology to art and culture. The relationship between John and Muriel became a powerful symbol of this growing unity, inspiring others to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. John and Muriel's partnership extended beyond the personal. They worked tirelessly to ensure that the alliance between their worlds was built on a foundation of mutual respect and shared goals. Together, they spearheaded initiatives that would benefit both species, from joint scientific research to cultural exchanges that enriched the lives of all involved. One of the most significant projects was the establishment of the Interstellar Cultural Exchange Center, a facility where humans and Alarians could come together to learn from each other, share their histories, and explore the many ways their cultures could complement one another. The center quickly became a hub of activity, drawing visitors from across the galaxy who were eager to witness the fruits of this unprecedented alliance. At the heart of it all was the love that had blossomed between John and Muriel, a love that had once been seen as a potential threat but had now become a beacon of hope. Their relationship was no longer just about two people. It was about two worlds coming together in a way that had never been done before. The journey had not been easy. They had faced opposition, doubt, and fear, but they had overcome these obstacles by staying true to their values and to each other. The bond they shared was stronger than ever, and it was this bond that fueled their determination to continue building a future where humans and Alarians could thrive together,